ब्रिटिश कोलंबिया के प्रीमियर जॉन होर्गन ने विक्टोरिया में एक न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस की। प्रीमियर वालों फैडरल सरकार के सूबे नूं हैल्थ ट्रांसफर भुगतानों नूं वधाउण ते चर्चा की गई ते नाल ही उन्हां वालों कफायती मुद्दे अते कोविड महामारी तो आर्थिक रिकवरी के एजेंडे ते भी गलबात की गई। 2019 विच महामारी की शुरुआत तो बाद सारे प्रीमियर की यह पहली व्यक्तिगत मीटिंग सी।
We wanted to talk about, of course, the challenges of dealing with the Indian Act, archaic legislation that was brought in at a time when the residential school policies were being developed and implemented across Canada. Clearly, in 2022, with the revelation of 215 unmarked graves on Tk'emlúps and Secwépemc territory, as well as revelations from residential school territories around Canada, it's high time that the national governments, provincial governments, and Indigenous peoples work together to heal that trauma, turn the page, a black page on our national history, and start anew with a dialogue about how we can all live in harmony on this land that has been populated by Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. Firstly, we talked about the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which is an act that was embraced, or a UN proposal that was embraced by the province of British Columbia, working with Chief TG and other members of the First Nations Leadership Council here in British Columbia. We are now 4 years into the Declaration Act, as well as just this past spring announcing our work plan going forward to 87 items, Terry? 89? 2 more were added while we were in the room. 89 action items within the work plan. And what I wanted my fellow premiers to hear, not just from Terry and not just from the other Indigenous leaders here, but our hosts, Chief Sam and Chief Thomas, that when we passed the Declaration Act, the sun came up the next day. When we passed the Declaration Act, the only thing that changed in British Columbia was that justice arrived for First Peoples, whose lands have been used by settlers who have come over many, many decades, centuries in fact. My father, an Irish immigrant, I myself am a result of European expansion, but I am proud and pleased to be here with my brothers and sisters from the Indigenous community to talk about real reconciliation. And it starts with leadership at the provincial tables, working with the federal government, and then, of course, most importantly, working with Indigenous communities. We touched on a bunch of critically important issues. Child welfare, again, harkens back to the residential school processes, the 60s scoop. We now have in British Columbia and in other jurisdictions a move, and the federal government has been leading on this as well, a move towards children being kept in community, being kept in their cultures, and so that the trauma of family disruption and disunity does not also lead to a loss of culture, a loss of person, a loss of who you are and where you fit in the cosmos. These are critically important issues, and we had an opportunity today to sit down around a table, the first time since the pandemic, where we could be face-to-face talking candidly about the challenges Indigenous people are facing in every corner of the country, having First Ministers here to hear those stories, to also engage in dialogue, I think was very useful. And I'm just proud and honored to share this podium today with my colleagues to let you know that COF 2022 is underway. After this press conference, I'll be returning to the conference center, and we'll be picking up the primary issue that we came together to discuss, which is the state of public health care in Canada.